So this session's a little bit different, and I'll go through that in a minute. For the people that don't know me in the room, my name's James Brown. I've stolen it. I'm the godfather of FinTech. And the only reason I actually stole that is because Jeremy Muir introduced me at an event a couple of years ago, and he sort of just said, James Brown, the godfather of FinTech, and I thought, that sort of feels like it fits. I'm no relation, clearly, but obviously there's definitely some synergy in there. You were actually due to have someone else MC the session, but unfortunately, due to circumstances beyond their control, you've got me. So I never apologize in presentations, and I won't start now, because this is going to be awesome. I'm going to need a lot of energy from you. There are facilitators on all the tables to help you on the journey. But I just wanted to sort of just put a couple of little points out there. The session is titled Data, Digital Technology and Solutions for ESG. So when we walk out of this room in about 50-ish or so minutes, there's going to be at least half a dozen business solutions that we can actually take to market and commercialize. Is that fair? No pressure? We're agile, we can move it. We can do it just on the fly. Love your thinking. So pens and papers on the table, your problems in front of you. I'm going to need you to nominate someone to take some notes, and I'm going to also need you to nominate someone to come up here and present to everyone at the end. So a little bit this morning, if you were in the Pitch Perfect session, you won't have 5 minutes. That person will have about 60 seconds to recall the discussion at the table and the solution that you guys have come up with. Everybody's gone really quiet because now they've gone, gee whiz, that's actually quite serious now. But you're all grown up, you'll be totally fine. But I just wanted, there was a couple of little things that resonated with me in terms of the topic and trying to sort of like frame it. And I've just written it down because I wanted to get it correct. Climate change represents one of the largest economic and political challenges of the 21st century. Nations individually and collectively are developing policies and responses to mitigate or manage risks posed to our society. The need for action is now. There's been a lot of talk about it over the years, and there has been a lot of talk about it over the years. But the reality is we now need to actually really put the foot to the accelerator and actually get things done. The energy systems we use day to day are rapidly changing, and I think they definitely could change more rapidly. And I quite like this from the Bank of England governor actually just a couple of years ago when he said that climate change will lead to financial crisis in falling living standard unless countries and companies take action on greenhouse gas emissions. Talk about throwing a grenade into a room. So look, you've got your problem statement in front of you. Hopefully you've got your facilitator have identified themselves. What I'm going to do is allow you guys to freely discuss, and then I'll come round and just see how you guys are getting on, and I'll also give you a bit of a time check. So, this is all about you this session, so feel free. If you want to move around, see what the others are doing, get some little tidbits, feel free to do so, but let the discussion commence. We've got about 10 minutes. So I've just spoke to a couple of the tables and they sort of said maybe 2 minutes to present back would be good. So is there any one table that's ready to go right now? Come on, who's? Yeah, you guys are good?
We just found it so easy to be this.
Okay, we're really keen to hear this.
I'm not talking.
Yeah, we've got a roaming mic. You don't need to come up on stage, but just you, who's your nominated speaker? If you can stand this way and face the room, please. All right, everybody, just while you close out your little bit quietly, we'll just hear table. What was your problem and how are you going to solve it?
Our problem was lack of education skills and resources, so we really broke it down. We had a great little group of people from different perspectives, which is fantastic, and they're going to pipe in case I miss anything. But we felt that there were layers to this, and so in the education one, it was professional development for the guard that's currently there. So, and if they don't get on board the bus, then they needed to go. And then there was the emerging, learning it in primary and secondary, supporting that, and then obviously having that come through to our university degrees and whatever programs they choose to then move into in terms of post-high school. But we also need education from the consumers, so it can be consumer-driven, and that then leads to tools that consumers need and businesses need to be supporting that drive, so that actually businesses are then reporting against these and the resource one was frameworks. So there wasn't actually anything out there that was really guiding and driving businesses. So it was education for the consumer so that it could be market led, and then enabling frameworks and resources for businesses to be able to do that, and ensuring that there was education at the top and as well as the upcoming talent in an organisation. And the most important sort of message around that was that we really needed to do it urgently, because obviously we know why, but if that meant that there's somebody in place that needed to go, then they need to go. And what was that paper?
Innovation, one death at one.
Innovation, one funeral at a time. Anything else to add? Great. All right.
Okay, who wants to come up next?
Nice work.
Great job, by the way. Very difficult to follow that.
Kia ora. Ko Tom toku ingoa. So we had the task of addressing greenwash, which is alive and well in New Zealand, and it's particularly it's happening quite a lot. And so what the problem is that we've got a bunch of people that believe that marketing, what they do is a good thing, and sometimes it disconnects with what is actually happening on the ground and the direction. So what we came up with was what we need is a consistent way of evaluating claims. So a clear standard for communicating environmental income to consumers, and a single credible governing body to define these standards, because there at the moment it doesn't really feel like in this space that's occurring. There's a competition between different auditing bodies and different standards and different frameworks, and everyone picks a framework that works well for them. And so we believe that the government, and I believe XRB will get involved, will help there. And also having one single source of the truth. So having a place where you can, what people say they're doing, they can actually transparently show that they're actually doing it. And so that was kind of where we came to. So the solution we were looking at was a single credible governing body to define the standards. And I'm just wondering, is there anything else that I've left out? Oh, yes, there was one other thing. Like, there are people that are doing extremely well, and at the moment with greenwash, there seems to be a focus on the people that are doing poorly, and I think we need to laud the ones that are actually doing a brilliant job, and then help the ones that are greenwashing move along that journey a little bit faster. So, yeah.
Cool.
Anything else? Oh, yeah.
Thank you. I really like the single source of truth and the transparency. Yep, really good.
So kia ora koutou. We were looking at transition risk and scenario analysis. So transition risk, very, very briefly, if you don't know what that is where we are essentially decarbonising our economy. So that pathway there. Now, when you're undergoing a transition, there's probably three things you need to do at a very high level. One, you've got to have a target to where you're heading towards, and generally it's a target around how you're going to reduce your emissions or offset them. You need a pathway to that target, and then the third thing you need to do is you need to bring your portfolio or your business in line with that pathway to take you there. But in order to do any of that, you need to have a strategy to enable you to, one, consider the relevant issues and concerns and opportunities and risks that you will face to do that part, to align with that pathway, but of course a strategy on how to bring your business in alignment with that. So we believe that one of the big barriers to making that transition and to carrying out that alignment piece is a lack of ability within organisations to strategise around climate change. And even around our table, we had a discussion about whether climate change risk is a new risk or it's an additional risk to all the other risks that we're dealing with. So our solution to the problem, and it's pretty vague at this time because it's a big issue, but is to develop a tool that will enable organisations to have a discussion to help them identify what those goals will be, to have a discussion around what considerations they need to take into account when developing a strategy, effectively a climate strategy development tool. Possibly going to incorporate, the use of AI because of the data requirements that we're striking when we're, and organisations are on this transition path. Did I cover that off? Okay.
I think for me as well, listening to one of the tables earlier on, there was a really interesting little discussion about how the educated becomes the educator. Is that the way I think you guys said it? The example that was given is that the gentleman actually had 2 children who were coming home and actually educating him and his wife actually about sustainability and things of that nature. And I thought that was really quite a great opportunity that we could actually get something early into the curriculum that they sort of almost come home and, dare I say it, embarrass the parents of actually what they are or aren't actually doing. And it sort of took me back to the worm farm earlier on this morning, where actually everybody in that audience, I'm sure, just thought, wow, this is what the kids are doing at school these days. And won't tell you what I was doing back then, but never mind. But it definitely feels like, it's hard, but I'm definitely feeling that there's some positivity about the discussion. So 2 tables left. Who wants to go second to last?
It was the Biden's hand up.
Come on, Mr. B.
Tēnā koutou katoa. My name's Chris. I'm from Xero and also sit on the FinTechNZ Council. We had this. By the way, you were a tough act to follow, my friend. That was really well thought out. We had a pretty open discussion at our table, and I'm not entirely sure we completely nailed it in terms of
transparency right there.
Just setting the expectations. But we took a couple of points of view on table 6, which is gearing your asset allocation either from a lending perspective or an investment perspective to climate change. And there were a couple of themes that came out. So the first one was just taking the lens of a personal investor and trying to match, giving that investor the option to match their values to their investment fund and trying to introduce some sort of customisation into that fund selection process, but being completely dependent on some kind of universal measurement model, and I think you mentioned that earlier. From an absolutely sort of green perspective, and the other definition of the word green, I don't really understand much about the reporting frameworks, and it just seems to be quite a complex area. And then we sort of started talking about lending, and that's sort of a little bit about my background from a commercial banking background. And I know that there's a fairly prescriptive approach to measuring risk within a lending portfolio. We've got loss given default. We've got the risk of default or the probability of default. And so we sort of thought about maybe introducing a 3rd layer or a 4th layer, which introduces a measurement for climate risk and a measurement for emissions, and then that ladders up into some kind of capital requirement, which could end up into a sort of a user pays kind of model, which would be an unintended consequence, but there would be a kind of a financial kind of penalty, I guess, for the higher risk industries and the higher cost of capital, and even sort of more sort of kind of creatively, you could redistribute that capital levy into some kind of climate fund. Potentially. Yep. So yeah, those are our thoughts.
The other thing they were discussing as well is actually the utilisation of data points that are already in existence. So if we think about the massive cost of new regulation to be implemented, so if it's already there, can we actually just use that as a bit of a roadmap? New Zealand actually is seen as a country that's very agile, so therefore why don't we actually take an agile approach to this? And we know that it might not be perfect from day one, but we actually start to embrace it and believe it and breathe it. Last but not least, who's gone from the team?
Excellent. Well volunteered.
Everybody had 2 minutes. You've got 95 seconds.
All right, so I think we spent most of the time actually discussing the problem statement than solutions, and that was because we actually found that having access or getting access to data or data that's useful or standardised was a huge problem. So we talked around, I don't know why that was the case, but anyway, we came at it from being a financial services company. We wanted to have access to standardised data that we can trust, that we can also get from a cost-effective point of view, like we've got to be able to use it and not spend a lot of money, that allows us to then build low-emission solutions or choice for end consumers. A key dependency was on that consistency of data, so the XRB standards were really important. And then we got to probably as far as some kind of open source carbon emission API that everyone can rely on in the industry and access. And we talked a bit about some kind of, I don't know, like a Wikipedia carbon emission consensus type solution there. But once you have access to that data and it's consistent, and we didn't get this far, but then like a fund manager or anyone in the financial services sector can kind of start creating products for end consumers that you can then give them access to data. You might be able to go and choose a fund or look at a range of funds and go, well, actually, if I paid a bit more, then I can significantly reduce the carbon footprint by doing that. Or, maybe have a look through to underlying companies and go, well, actually, if a manager was to remove some of the companies here and replace them with others, then you could actually make a big impact there. So that's where we got to.
Wow. Yeah, quick question over here.
I would just like to everyone in the room, if you want access to Crown Research Institute data, please talk to your minister. The more people that talk to your minister, the more they know it's a problem.
Good to know.
There's a petition at the door on the way up. We can create one. Look, ladies and gentlemen, it appears we've obviously concluded our session today. I thoroughly enjoyed just walking around the table and sort of earwigging on all the conversations, and it was really interesting to sort of hear some that were really focused in on the problem statement on the table. Others were coming at it from a slight tangent, but sort of actually got there towards the end. The reality is it's a big, hairy, audacious problem in front of us. And I think the sense I got is that everybody wants to obviously have a say in this. How do we, I suppose, as individuals, as companies, as a collective, as a nation, actually make a positive impact for the future? And I think for future generations not to bear the brunt or the burden of, I suppose, what we've unfortunately done. So in conclusion, thank you very much. Obviously, afternoon tea is now going to be served. Please make your way, if you've not already done so, up to Tech Alley. I won't put Jason on the spot, but
because I want to say one thing.
Okay. But FinTechNZ, and there's a number of the board members here as well as Jason as well, and we will be running our FinTech QE next year. Looking forward to replicating what was done previously. But over to you, Jason.
Thank you. Just said what I wanted to say.
Okay.
Actually, before we dash, I do want to say and acknowledge the awesome effort of the FinTech working group on sustainable finance. So I'll just quickly point out and say, Leanna,
yep.
Thank you for all your hard work, and Mitchell, who helped us. The board, who are actually standing amongst the table there. So it is a really important issue, not only for FinTech, but also for the NZ Tech community. So I would urge you to be involved with the FinTech community, also the working group in particular, and of course just the general mahi of the purpose we're all trying to do. We do have a conference coming up in February the 28th. It's our major conference for the FinTech community, and it's going to really focus on some of these important issues. So we'd absolutely love to have you all there, and thank you again for coming. It's a great effort.
And I'll just say last, the papers and stuff, if you don't mind and if you're comfortable with, we'll gather them, because actually some of the things that you discussed, and some of it obviously will be recorded as well, we will actually go away and digest. And I think some of that will actually be then taken and absorbed into the sort of the working group as well, because we may as well actually take the energy and the enthusiasm and actually, let's be honest, stop talking about it and actually do something with it. So thank you.
Good on you.